their bases, but continue to haunt the streets. We tried to get access to one of these bases, saw a handful of gunmen there, and were told to leave.
A pickup truck just swerved in front of us, forcing us to stop. 3 men got out, wanting to talk, I'm assuming, about what it is that we're doing here. And they seemed quite agitated.
One of our escorts was warned that, quote, since the extremists no longer control security, they couldn't ensure ours. They were advising us to leave town. In the market, most eyed us warily. Residents say a general strike and demonstrations forced the militias to abandon their bases. But this man tells us it's far from clear they will fade away. While we were filming here, a man came over to speak to us, but he was too afraid to go on camera. He wanted us to know that the majority of people here are sick and tired of being in the spotlight because the minority, he says, is affiliated with Al-Qaeda. Hussein Massoudi, a local journalist, says radical Islam has always had a place in Darna. Men from here fought in Afghanistan, and estimates are that more than 50 traveled to Iraq to become suicide bombers, the highest number from any town outside of Iraq. The city and its surroundings were sympathetic to these groups because they had a common enemy, which was Gaddafi, Massoudi explains. They were all trying to bring down Gaddafi. From the onset of the revolution, it was the extremists that provided security. After liberation was announced, says Massoudi, there was increasing pressure on Al-Qaeda in Yemen and other places. Coming to Libya was easy. Among those setting up camp, Sufyan bin Gumu, once bin Laden's driver and held in Guantanamo Bay for 5 years, established the Ansar al-Sharia unit in Darna. And Abdel Basit Azzouz, alleged to have been sent here by Al-Qaeda's leader Ayman al-Zawahiri. According to security sources, these Islamist militia have a common goal: weakening and then infiltrating Libya's security apparatus. In Benghazi,
3 years ago,
assassinations of former military officers
to try to stop a Taliban resurgence in Afghanistan. According to new data from NATO, it seems that goal was not met. A government official has said that even though the attacks have not stopped or reduced, the violence has moved from population centers. CNN's Anna Corin has more on this and the story of a suicide bomber whose plan was aborted by police.
Behind these high walls at Pulachaki prison, among the 7,000 inmates, are several men who say they're hell-bent on being terrorists. We've come here to meet a confessed would-be suicide bomber, one of hundreds now locked up behind bars. 25-year-old Ruhala believes he was carrying out God's will when he and his friends planned an attack on American soldiers in Nangarhar province. He says he agreed to wear a suicide vest and kill as many foreigners as possible. It's a special feeling that comes to you when you are ready for a suicide attack, he tells me. No one can stop you. No one could stop me. That is, except the law. When police arrested him 5 months ago in Jalalabad during the planning of the attack, he's now awaiting trial. Proudly a member of the Taliban, Ruhala says no one encouraged him to do this. Look at our situation. The foreigners kill our people, they insult our religion, burning the Holy Quran and making cartoons of our Prophet Muhammad. If we don't defend Islam, then we are not Muslim. Suicide bombings and other attacks are now daily occurrences in the war in Afghanistan, and the methods of the insurgents are constantly changing, according to the prison boss, General Khan Mohammed Khan. The enemy don't use their old tactics. Now they use women, sometimes children and teenagers. They even get dressed up in military uniforms. They don't fight face to face. They're cowards. While the Taliban denies recruiting children as suicide bombers, the facts tell a very different story. Authorities say just a few days ago, a 10-year-old orphan boy managed to escape from insurgents who were going to make him wear a suicide vest so he could blow himself up in front of coalition troops. Ruhala has a 4-year-old son who he says he loves and misses very much. When I ask him how he'd feel if his child was used as a suicide bomber, he tells me if he wants to be a suicide bomber when he gets older, well then no one can stop him. If he follows Islam and does it for Islam, then that's a good thing. At times he speaks with hatred in his eyes, and then there are moments when he smiles, explaining this is all a test from God. Our real life starts after doomsday, so this is not our real life. This world is a paradise for pagans and a hell for Muslims. We just need to be patient. The Afghan intelligence service and armed forces say they have foiled dozens of attacks in recent months. And while that's an encouraging sign, Ruhala says there are thousands of others just like him, ready to put on a suicide vest and die for their country and their religion. Anna Corrin, CNN, Kabul.
Well, time now to take our second break. When we come back, we'll take a look at sports. Stay tuned in. Welcome back. Former Chelsea manager Jose Mourinho has said that John Terry is not a racist, despite his punishment for using racist language on the football field. Terry, who played under Mourinho at Stamford Bridge, was banned for 4 matches and fined more than $350,000 on Thursday for making offensive remarks against QPR's Antoine Ferdinand in a Premier League match. In an exclusive interview with CNN, the Real Madrid boss said, "People should not jump into conclusions about Terry."
They've got the best pictures of the day. That's Europe's captain Jose Maria laugh about all the most interesting tweets, like from Kelly Tillman of the Golf Channel, for example. That's CNN.com/WorldSport, our live Ryder Cup golf blog. Now, in an exclusive interview with CNN, former Chelsea manager Jose Mourinho says John Terry is not a racist, despite his punishment for using racist language on the football field. Terry, who played under Mourinho at Stamford Bridge, was banned for 4 matches and fined more than $350,000 on Thursday for making offensive remarks to QPR's Antoine Ferdinand in a Premier League game last year. But Real Madrid's boss says people shouldn't jump to conclusions about Terry.
He's not a racist. That's 100%. We had a squad where we had 12 African players in the squad, and was fantastic squad, and they had always a great relation with every one of them. But in football can happen, because I know it can happen, during a football match, because football sometimes is more than a game, and sometimes you have reactions that doesn't represent what you are really. Probably he had a racist comment or a racist attitude against an opponent, and sometimes in football we look to our opponents in the wrong way. If he had that reaction, he has to pay for that reaction, but to pay is to be punished. But please, don't say that he's a racist, because I know, and what I'm saying, Drogba will say, Jeremy will say, Makelele will say, all of them will say, that is not a racist.
Do you think there is racism in football?
I never felt it. Never. In a dressing room, I never felt it. And I always had African players in every one of my team.
And before we go, reminder of headlines. Officials from Nigeria's Fisheries Society and the Gambia's Chamber of Commerce and Industry have discussed the prospects of greater investment and sectoral collaboration between Abuja and Banjul. Hajj operatives and intending Gambian pilgrims are on the final stages of preparation for the holy journey to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. After days of negotiation, the leaders of the two Sudans have struck agreements in various areas of security Security and Cooperation. And the U.S. is pulling staff from its consulate in Benghazi weeks after the deadly attack that killed its top diplomat in Libya. You can monitor Grts Radio live on our website, and that's on www.grts.gm. That brings us to the end of the news. Thank you very much for your time, and inshallah we'll be back at 2200 hours.